Are you tired of manually restarting your Flask server every time you make a change? If so, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to show you how to set up your Flask server to automatically reload when you make changes, all while running in a Docker container. I completely understand your frustration. It can be really annoying to have to rebuild and restart your Docker container every single time you tweak your code. You're definitely not alone in this. Many developers face this issue when starting out with Flask and Docker. Let's dive into the specific question at hand. One user asked, "How can I get my Flask server to detect code changes and reload automatically while running in a Docker container?" They shared their project structure and code, which we'll review together to find a solution. So what's going wrong here? The key to automatic reloading in Flask is to ensure that your application is running in debug mode and that the volume is set up correctly in your Docker configuration. This allows Flask to detect changes in your code and reload the server without needing a full restart. And stick around. At the end of this video, I'll share a quick tip that will make your development process even smoother. To enable automatic reloading of the Flask server in a Docker container, the user should ensure that the Flask application is running in debug mode. This allows Flask to detect changes in the code and reload automatically. Next, the user needs to configure the Docker setup correctly. This involves ensuring that the code changes are reflected in the container. The user should check the volume mapping in the Docker compose file. Now, the user should modify the Docker file to ensure that the Flask application runs with the correct settings. This includes using the Flask development server instead of a production server. Finally, the user can start the Docker container using the command docker compose up. This will launch the Flask application, and any changes made to the code will trigger an automatic reload. Fun fact: did you know that Flask was created by Armin Ronacher as part of an April Fool's joke? It has since become one of the most popular web frameworks for Python. Now, let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative solution provided by another user suggests using a different Docker configuration. They recommend using version 3.8 of Docker Compose. In their setup, they define a service called local development, which builds from a specific Docker file and maps the current directory to the code directory in the container. In their Flask application, they also set the debug mode to true. This allows Flask to automatically reload when code changes are detected. The user emphasizes that Docker integrates with file system events, enabling code changes to reflect inside the container without needing to rebuild. Here's that quick tip I promised. Always keep your Docker images and containers updated. This can prevent many issues and ensure you have the latest features and fixes. And there you have it. Your Flask server should now automatically reload when you make changes. Remember, debugging and testing are crucial parts of development. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe for more tips and tricks.